when everybody sits, suddenly that now there are coals, like there is a basket full of coals. One of the coals floats upwards, aggressively goes onto the board. I feel like when the coal starts floating and then aggressively goes to the board, like everybody's face has a disbelief, it's like what, Sand is like enjoying this because sand can also float things, and to him this is not a weird thing. Soul is also just very calm. Both of them are very calm. Other than them, everybody's like, what? Now, with with the piece of coal, um, onto the board, the piece of coal writes, so in the school, all of you are the teachers and the students at the same time. You have to live with each other and you have to learn from each other. And after you realize, you will find yourself and then you can leave. Now the interesting thing is that it said you can leave. It didn't say you must leave. That's a very cool thing. So these people, they have the choice to also leave right now too. Because there isn't really anything stopping them. It's just a piece of coal. So this school is like haunted or something, because that's like a ghost or something. We never know what it was. But every time the piece of coal floats and then writes on the board, the kids decided to call it the teacher, even though the coal literally said that they were the teacher and they were the students. They decided to call it the teacher. After it writes, immediately the bell rings, and the students are happy. So they go to eat what the lunch lady has offered them. Lunch lady made some soup, some bread. So it's some good stuff, and some. There's a whole garden in front of this school because it's in the middle of the forest. You can just go to the forest and find fruits. So there is some fruits like blueberries and stuff. The forest name is blueberry, so there has to be blueberry in it, so it's called blueberry forest, right? Now, now that they went inside the classroom and saw everybody that was inside the classroom, everybody kind of got the idea of who is in the classroom. Sand looked around when the bell rang before exiting. Sand looked around, saw rose, saw void, saw the whole sky blue, saw hell, saw soul, time, and the lunch lady, sky, and then shadow. Soul doesn't see any of these people as friends. In his normal life, he would always kill whatever came in front of it. So Soul is like, you guys are lucky I'm not killing you guys. That's the mentality he has, which is so dangerous because he thinks that anything other than killing is not gonna break anybody's heart. And he knows that that's not true. He knows that those stones weren't killing him, but still they were doing something bad to him. Sand decides to think like that. Now Sand, out of all of the people, he looks at hell and he thinks, you know what? I want to know about this guy. Is it because he is showing interest? Or is it because he saw the violence in him and then got attracted to, I mean, when I say attracted, as a friend, got some kind of a, felt a bond with that violence, because he always wants violence around him, so he decided to have Hell as a friend. We don't know. So in the lunchroom, he goes ahead and sits right next to Hell. And right now, Hell's name is not Hell. Hell's name is Cotton. So he sits right next to Hell, aka Cotton. He's like, "Hey, what's your name?" Cotton replies with a smile. Cotton looks like the most innocent ever person in the whole school. Cotton says, "Cotton, and my name is Cotton." Hell is like, "Wow, that's a funny name." Now Hell wants to get in Cotton's, gets in a nerve of Cotton, so that Cotton can show the violence that he actually has. He wants Cotton to get out of his innocent part and go to his violent part, because he feels that violent part exists in him, but he just wants that violent part to be out. Right now, Cotton is acting very kind, and that's why right now Rose and Cotton are sitting together, and right next to them, in the shadows of Cotton and Rose, is sitting Shadow on the floor eating her food. And then suddenly, Sand comes and asks Cotton his name, and Cotton replies, "My name is Cotton. What is yours?" And then Sand is like, now Sand doesn't want to say my name is Sand, because to him that sounds pathetic. He wants something. What Sand is thinking is that now Sand wants violence, right? And Sand feels like Cotton has that violence in him. To get that violence out, he's going to try and find some reasons to get that violence out. For example, manliness. He's going to use manliness, like manliness. Like, you know how they say you're not a man because you don't do this? He's going to use that to make Cotton more violent. So when Cotton asks his name, he goes ahead and tries to say a very manly name. And so he names himself, Sand names himself Fire. He says, "My name is Fire." And Cotton is like, "Wow, that's a very cool name. Do you want to sit and eat with us?" And then he's like, "Yeah, sure." He goes ahead and sits with them. Now, right now, he knows that Rose is sitting right next to Cotton, and because of that, Rose is probably going to understand what he's trying to do to Cotton, so he tries to act normal. He goes ahead and eats his food, and then he looks at Cotton. He's like, "Wow," he looks so, innocent, like childlike, but I can feel that he has some violence inside him. Like, I want that violence because nobody else in this school seems violent other than me. And without the violence, I feel very gentle, and I don't want to be gentle. If I go back to my gentle self, I know what's going to happen. I'm again going to just be nothing. I'm going to die, I don't want to die. It was a horrible feeling to die. When I was dead, nobody cared. It was just quietness. But everything went normal. Everything was like cool, But I don't want to think about that reality. I don't want to think about that when I die, everything is just going to be the same. I want to make sure that I live, and that's why I want to be tough. I wanna not get hurt, and that's why I want to be gentle. And that's why I want the violent part of Cotton to come out so that we can be violent together, so that I don't have to go back to that giant that gentle part of myself, you know. So um, Rose goes ahead and says, "Hey, I'm going to go and wash my hands," which is very cool. It's an advantage for Sand to um, try and push Cotton into his violent personality, you know. So Rose goes to wash her hand, and Shadow sort of just follows Rose's shadow, and that's why Rose walks with. That's why Shadow walks with Rose into the bathroom to wash Rose's hands. So, also the interesting thing is that Shadow didn't even finish her food yet. But just because Rose is going to now wash her hands, Shadow also is going to wash her hands because she's like, oh, your food is done, my food is done too, okay. Let's go to the bathroom together. And then they go there together. Now, Sand and Cotton is Sand is sitting in front of, Sand was sitting in front of Cotton, so, and Rose and Shadow was sitting right next to Cotton. So now we have Sand and Cotton sitting front to front, you know. And so now, I already said Sand is going to try and use manliness as a reason to Cotton for him to be more violent. He's going to be like, if you're not violent, you're not a man. Even though he knows that this is not true. But he wants to use that. He wants to say that so that Cotton feels like he has to be violent. And that'll give Sand what he wants. So Sand is like, Sand is like, tell me about your personality. Cotton is like, well, no. Sand is like, tell me about yourself. Cotton is like, well, I come from a family that used to live in a city, and I got bullied once. And I know that getting bullied is not that big of a deal, but I felt like I wanted to do something different other than the other people, and that different thing wasn't a good thing, so I decided to tell my parents that we should not live in the cities and we should come to live in a forest. And that they are very kind, so they decided to listen. And then Sand just cuts him off. He's like, you came here just because you got bullied. And then of course there's a silence, and Cotton's like, yeah, well, yes. And then Sand is like, Sand is like, well, that is the issue with you. I feel like you're just very weak, and so Cotton is like, what do you expect me to do? And then he's like, well, hit them back. You could have killed them, but because you didn't kill them, they're right now living in there. Now Cotton is very weirded out, but at the same time he's like, just while saying this, Sand is looking directly into his eyes, and Cotton isn't moving his eyes either, so they're just looking into each other's eyes, and Cotton is kind of like weirded out but doesn't want to show it, so he's like, that's not the right thing to do. And then Rose comes, and then Shadow also is just walking behind Rose, walking in Rose's shadow, and then Cotton is like, oh cool, you guys came. And then he looked at Sand like he doesn't want to talk to him ever again. He says, oh, I'm glad you came. And then hits a look to Sam. He looks at Sam like, I don't want to ever talk to you again. You look disgusting. You say disgusting stuff, you know. And Sand is like sort of not making any. Nothing about his face, nothing about Sand's face has changed, because he doesn't want to admit that he's wrong, even though he knows that he's wrong. Because if he admits that he's wrong, then Cotton will get to say, "Oh, he was just wrong." But he just wants Cotton to be confused. He just wants Cotton to be like, he was wrong, right? In his head, Cotton is like, he was wrong, right? But I mean, Cotton knows. Cotton knows that he really wished to kill the hurtful people. But he also knows that he didn't want to kill those bullies, because those bullies were just little children, you know? Cotton's dream is to grow up and kill the bad people of this earth. And when we say bad people of this earth, we're not talking about the bullies, the little children. We're talking about the people who actually hurted so many people, just because they wanted it, or just because it was bringing them some kind of good thing to hurt them, you know. So Cotton and Rose and Shadow behind them, they start chatting, but it doesn't look like they three are chatting. It looks like just Cotton and Rose is chatting, and every once in a while Cotton and Rose kind of try to make Shadow talk too. So it goes like this. They're just walking. They're walking outside. So like they're walking to the stairs, and then from the stairs they're gonna walk all the way to outside, and then they're just gonna go ahead and have a walk outside. So it's a long walk. As they're getting out of the lunch room and then going downstairs, well, my hand is tired and it has been 40 minutes of a video, so let's talk about their talk tomorrow and then add more into the story. Bye.